Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. We'll give maybe a minute and then we'll dive in. This, of course, is being recorded. So if you join late or anything like that, we will be sharing it out and you can share it with your team. So thanks for taking the time. Right, we've got more people joining. Hello, hello. Amazing. We'll maybe start at 2 minutes past the hour just to give people a couple minutes. Thanks for spending your time with us. Hello, everybody. See more people joining in. Hello. Great. Happy to have everyone here. Hello. Awesome. Love that the chat is already popping off. Please continue to use the chat. We really want this to be, conversational. This is a learning for everyone, and we want to just have, really open conversation. So if you have questions or comments or, want to hear more of what Jamie's saying, please pop it into the chat. So thank you everyone for being here. We'll go ahead and get started. So hello everybody. Thanks for spending your time with us. If you don't know me, I'm Madyson. I lead the customer success team here at AllVoices. I've been at the company for a little over 6 years now, which is crazy. So really, really excited to be chatting with you all today. Today, as you know, is all about documentation and why it's so important beyond just that compliance piece. So we are very lucky to be joined here today by Jamie Gabriel. Jamie is a former HR executive spanning financial services, healthcare, telecommunications. She has led global teams across HRBPs, employee relations, labor management, talent acquisition, strategy, and operations. She is known for her ability to transform organization, driving the human aspect of human resources. She has a long list of great accomplishments from developing employee value propositions, driving culture during M&A, IPO, and organizational effectiveness. She has gone on to start her own HR consulting business, focusing on HR PMO, talent strategy, and career milestone coaching with Gabriel Consulting Services. So, Jamie's done just a few things. But Jamie, thank you so much for being here. We're really, really excited to be chatting with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you guys today too.
Awesome. So let's just set the baseline here. So we want to kind of chat about documentation, obviously. Everyone kind of, when they think about documentation, is probably thinking, yes, we know it is a compliance checkbox. We got to do it for the legal reasons. But how else can documentation really strengthen teams and leadership beyond just that compliance piece?
Yeah. Let's underscore super important. Compliance matters. All of our friends in legal need us to say that, need us to believe it, need us to breathe it. The reality is, though, is that documentation can help in so many other ways when you are either a leader or an HR professional or the combination of the two. So I love stories, and hopefully, our audience today is all in on stories. I want to tell you about an amazing rock star that came to me a few years ago, and she did the knock on the door and the hey, Jamie, can I just get your ear for a second? I'm not loving this team that I'm on. Nothing that I need to like report. There's nothing abusive. There's nothing bad. There's nothing out of policy, but just not my vibe, not working for me. So, from an HR compliance standpoint, right, I really don't need to do much, but she's asking to talk to me. And so she shares with me what it is she wants to do, where she wants to go, how she wants to grow. And that leads me to learn more about her background. And so I could have moved from that conversation and just said, like, hey, I was just a stop on her venting radar so that she can get it out and talk to me and feel good. But part of me said she took the time to talk to me about herself, and I should take the 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes, sort of jot down a few notes that I had already been jotting down while we were talking because I wanted to make sure I heard her. I just added a few things, put it in my desk drawer with my other stuff because I just wanted to have it. Fast forward, we're in a business crunch and we're being asked to look at all of our headcount. And I'm sure everyone on this call has been in that moment, hitting your stomach, and you're just like, We got to do this again. Impacts are coming. We had an open role, and the leader was arguing how critical that role was. Cannot move forward without that role. Someone's got to go before that role goes. Well, my notes came in handy because guess what? Rockstar had that background and was aspiring for that background, and that leader didn't know. And we were able to find someone that she was grooming underneath her who could stretch. So we could technically impact her role, move her to this new role, and she could go do bigger things, and the person below her can grow. Had I not had those notes, though, one, no way I would have remembered all that detail. But two, I had something that I can go actually talk to a leader about and make a business impact. I'm happy to tell you, if you fast forward 2 years past that, she has gone on to be the head of talent at another company and continues to grow and talks about this story all the time. But here's where documentation helped. It helped the business make business decisions. I had information that an employee had shared, and I was able to prove what the validity is to be able to put the person in the role. And it allowed for us to move forward. So often, documentation is considered the nail in the coffin, the last ditch moment, the make sure we don't get sued, the if we have to settle, make sure we get less zeros on that number. And yes, documentation has a place for that stuff, but it also has a place for growing people and for evolving your business and for thinking about new ways. And you can't always do that in the moment, and none of us can remember all of that. So, documenting even things that could turn into something bigger to me is very important.
Absolutely. I think that's such a great story to hear too, because often the stories you hear about documentation are, oh, we didn't document this and then we were screwed. You know what I mean? Like so you often hear
Always.
these like
Yes.
negative stories where you're like, okay, I get it. Like we want to make sure to document everything. Something that we talk a lot about with teams are what is that line? Like how do you know what to document versus just a conversation? You don't want the employee to feel like, hey, this was just going to be a conversation. Am I getting written up? Or like, is this punitive? Like where is that line of what you should document versus not?
Sure. I think there's an important human balance at the front end first. Someone comes to talk to you, that's a privilege that they're choosing to come to you. And listen, as HR professionals, we get exhausted. There's a lot of things that are on our plate. There's a lot of burnout that happens. Everyone expects us to take their emotion, and we got nowhere to go with our emotion. And so it's a lot. I get it fully. But it's always got to be viewed as a privilege that someone is choosing to come tell you whatever they're harboring. Whenever someone comes to me, the first and foremost conversation is like, listen, what general concepts are we talking about here? If you're going to come in and tell me, I need to talk to you about a bad behavior, we're going to document. And I think most of this call would be like, yeah, obviously you're going to do that. I think where your question is going is like, what if it's not clearly a bad behavior? Or what if it's not a behavior at all? When do you document? I've always led teams with the you always do because someone took the time out of their day to talk to you. Make a note. It doesn't take a lot to write one bullet on a piece of paper. I don't care if it's on a napkin. I don't care if it's on the notes tab in your cell phone. I don't care if you keep a notebook, but there's no way you're going to remember every interaction you had today, tomorrow. So, how are you going to remember it in 2 or 3 months? And what's not helpful is if you say, oh, I remember they talked to me about that at some point. We all know that that doesn't hold up in any conversation. So I view it as it's part of the human interaction for me to take note of a conversation. I will tell you, I even take notes of silly things. Like someone comes in, like, we're getting a puppy this weekend. That's actually a really important thing to note. Not just because puppies are awesome and I want pictures, but do you know how much further it goes when you talk to them again and you look back at your notes and you say, how's that puppy going? What are we like 3, 4 months now? Employees' hearts boom and your engagement grows because you remembered. So for me, it's a habit to do for everything. I take a note for everything. It takes no more than a minute when the person's out of the room. It also gives me the minute to sip my coffee, sip my water, or my Diet Coke, depending on the time of day. And you're there. But I believe that documentation is important for anyone who's going to be interacting with people as part of their career.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point. How do you balance, so the team, the people listening might be saying, yes, totally agree, but we don't want sometimes employees can often feel like, oh, I don't want this written up or I don't want this to
Hard.
be like a big deal. Um, how can you kind of balance or even educate employees around how this actually makes culture better to document? It makes things more fair, more consistent. How can you kind of help them understand that?
Yeah, yeah. listen, I'm not saying that you need to use a fancy system to document like a puppy someone's taking home. It's more about just documenting, but there are things that you do need to document, and you do need to document them in a systematic way. And the reality is the better documentation you have in a systematic way, the more transparency and trust you can give your employees. Because you can actually say, everyone in this scenario, whether it was this age group or this background or whatever demographic the person wants to challenge you on is being given treated differently. By documenting everything you do, you can say you treated it all fairly. And isn't that the most important part, though, is that you're saying you treated it all as fairly as you could with the information you had. I'm a firm believer that you get into templates and things of that nature, which I'm sure we'll dive into that because you really want to make sure certain things are more fairly being looked at when it does get into someone's day to day. At the core of the way I view human resources, people take bets to come work for your company. It's not, they don't want to be treated like a number. They know they are, but they don't want to because they have a whole life that their job is supporting. And so if they're coming to talk to you, it's because they want fairness and they want to be part of something. And so the documentation piece is important so that you can turn around and say, you know what, every person who's had this issue was treated this way. Or more importantly, sometimes we have our own turnover, right? Or we have different groups. And all of a sudden you'll say, hey, there's like one leader who's really not doing a good thing here. Because when I look back at the documentation of all of the stuff in one cohesive system, I can see that the same leader continues to have approaching bad behavior. And I love to say approaching because we are very big on the black and white when it comes to where we're going to discipline or not. But you know when people are just not being good humans. That doesn't mean you can slap them on the wrist, right? But when you have all that documentation, when you see that 5 or 7 people from the same shift are coming to report a behavior, the behavior might not be that bad that it warrants a performance conversation, but hope is coming. Don't you want to, as an organization, know that you are sensing smoke before it turns into a fire? That you're able to proactively let your employees see that you care? Every company wants to be able to stand at the front of the mountain and say, I am an engaging employer, transparent, value added, employees want to work for me. Whether they do it or not is always where it crumbles. And so, documentation actually is a really important pillar in making sure that you are doing those things. And honestly, it's very helpful because you can point back and say, yeah, we did do it. Here's the 10 different things that happened. And since we all documented, we have information.
Yeah, the proactive piece is so big because I think sometimes in any industry or in any job, it's hard to make yourself kind of front load the effort and just like be like, it'll pay off in the end. But it's so smart to think about so that you're not in those reactive states. And also you have those analytics, you have those trends of let's look back and like let's analyze it, even if they aren't massive issues or, illegal activity, you have that insight and you'll thank yourself later, I guess.
Yeah. The reality is there's also for those people who need to talk to companies in ROI and in financial and legal questions. If you had smoke and you didn't do something about it, when that fire hits the judge, you will be hit with more. You will be hit with bigger fines, bigger impact, bigger punishments, because that attorney will go find the smoke and tell them about it. So if you aren't doing it out of the like, hey, we want this to be a great place, which I get that many people do, but that doesn't mean the partners around you are giving you the staff you need or the help you need or the tools you need, insert whatever it is, it will come back bigger and harder against your company when you get to those icky moments, like a lawsuit or a settlement, if there was smoke. So why not get to that front load? It is hard, as you said, Madyson. It's very hard to think that way. And honestly, you're probably putting out fires every day, especially in employee relations. But trying to figure out ways in which you can use technology to help keep you out of those day-to-day mundane admin tasks and be looking at the data that bubbles up by having everything in a consistent spot, that's where you can start to get ahead.
Yeah, that's such a good call out. And with leveraging AI and all of that, we have the capabilities to make it easier. On that note, we know HR, ER, everybody is so swamped and strapped for time and resources and all of that. How can they keep the documentation like as lightweight as possible, but not sacrifice any of that like important, you know, cultural impact or organizational insight or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question. I mean, we already started to answer. I think if you maximize your technology tools, it should be easy that you click Jamie Gabriel and all the details of me should come across. Like you don't need to be documenting who I work for, what building I work in, how long I've been there, how long I've been in titles. So let's hope you're maximizing your tech. If you're not, easy low hanging fruit, maximize your tech. But get down to the two or three questions that matter most. What are the things that matter most in your organization? And I say in your organization because you hire a specific way based on your values and your missions, and you allow and don't allow certain behaviors. Those are not necessarily anything that hits the good, bad from a legal standpoint, right? It's what you accept as a culture. And so I have built templates in every company I've ever been with my employee relations teams, and it works globally, where we get down to like three questions. And it's like the first one is often kind of what is at the heart of what the person wants you to know, not what you think, what they want you to know, which is the verbatim portion that they're giving you. Is there or isn't there a clear concern with policy, practice, or law? And if there isn't, it's not that you don't ask go, you're just acknowledging it in the data. And then from there, we go to the third piece of it, which is was there a feeling or an impact that is being driven from this person or around this person? And you can use your own language, but that was the last one that I used. And the reason for that was because we were driving a culture of unity and a culture of inclusion. And so if that person was spreading things that were impacting the team or around them, there were things spreading that directly was against the way we were hiring, the way we were developing, and the way we were promoting behaviors that we wanted. Why does that matter? Well, from a legal standpoint, it doesn't, right? But for an internal standpoint, to step forward, we are showing all of our stakeholders in the HR team and outside the HR team that we're actually helping you have the right people in the company. We're helping you identify who are the people who are going to bring this company forward. And it also meant that an ER person wasn't taking like 9 pages of notes for something that wasn't going to have a legal element to it. Yes, we all know that if like harassment comes up, if abuse comes up there, you have to go a whole different route and you should be ready for that route. But that's not your everyday. And so in your everyday, templates to me have worked really, really well. And then you know the questions in your head. So you're moving quickly. You're not sitting there like looking them up, thinking about them because you're doing the same questions every time.
Yeah, templates are huge. I think everyone wants a template of something of like, where do I even start? No one wants to reinvent the wheel every time. I really, really love those three questions you shared, especially around like, what do they want you to know? Because that also helps with someone comes in and just, dumps a bunch of information on you. You're not just like, okay, hold on, let me write it all down and like I got to get every single word and this is a whole thing that I have to do. You're just, okay, let's simplify it and what do they want me to know? What's the impact? All of that. So that's awesome. I really, really like that. And it goes hand in hand with it doesn't need to be, are they reporting an issue? So if it's not an issue, but they're still wanting you to know something, they're in your office, they're on a call with you for a reason. What is that reason? Let's document that. So I really, really like that. Um, Thinking through um, tools and kind of how you're documenting, what is the balance of, okay, what qualifies as documentation? If it's an email, is that okay? Is it, hey, I popped it in Google Docs, is that okay? Like, talk a little bit about what should documentation really look like?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I've used, napkins to take a note on like a puppy, but I think there is a context piece, right? And if you go into like what element of human has to go into the work that can't be technology driven, it's this. It's knowing where and when and how to use your tools. Now, can you have a Google sheet that just keeps track of people who have popped by to talk to you about being unsure about the new food in the cafeteria? For sure, because would you be concerned if someone found it? You wouldn't. You wouldn't have a concern unless your head of facilities is really passionate about the food in the cafeteria. You're not going to have a concern that someone's going to see it. But if it is keeping track of a specific age group having a concern about the way a leader speaks to them, would you be concerned that someone found it? You should be. And so you need to know which tools of yours are completely secure, to have the right coverage to ensure that other people can't get to it. they balance out from there. And you should have, as a team, as an HR team, you should have an understanding of which tools you use for what. And that's a really important thing to guideline. You know, you will get plenty of emails, Slacks, whatever text messages, whatever way people drop you lines, but that's actually only one way communication. So if you, Madyson, send me an email and you're like, hey, Jamie, like, I really didn't like the food in the cafeteria today, picking on that because clearly it's lunchtime and I'm a little hungry. But if I don't respond to you, that is technically documentation that you told me, but there's no documentation that I accepted you telling me. Like, for all you know, I'm out on vacation, and when I get back, I have too much going on, and I just kind of delete far too many things, or I lose track of it, or I have to reset my email and I never get to it, right? So you have to use the intelligence of, will this actually be something that would be questioned, right? And someone would say, well, Jamie, you received the complaint about the food, but I can argue I never confirmed receipt. I never confirmed anything. Now, if I respond back to your email and say, Madyson confirmed, got it, let's set up time to chat further on this date, that technically counts as documentation. And if you come into that meeting and tell me that you got food poisoning from it, that email trail kicks off my real documentation. But if you come in from it and we have a chat that has nothing to do with the food, I'm starting a whole new document on you. And the reason is for whatever you came to tell me and what you wanted me to hear. So it's a very simple question with a really big answer, right? Which is, you need to understand what tools your company has, how locked down they are, who has access to them, and how can they regularly be brought in and out of different things, right? The other thing you don't want to be in is in a tailspin of, if you do land yourself in one of those situations where you need to settle, or you have to go to court, or you need to have a deposition or some sort of mediation, you shouldn't be going to 9 different tools to find everything you need. You, as a practitioner, will be struggling to pin together how this conversation happened. The reality is that stuff never happens the next week. It's usually 9 months to 24 months later that you find out about one of those things and you're sitting down. So remembering all that and what tool you use is also problematic. So if you don't know today, I would say you and your team need to have an inventory of what tools you have, who has security to those tools, what tools should be used for what. And again, it's a template, right? The same template you use, you have a template of, we can use this for this, but everything else goes into that. My preference has always been to use the same tool because it also allows for easy PTO coverage. I'll go back to, we in HR take on all the emotions sometimes, and I need my people to let go and go away. And some of these investigations or conversations do not happen and finish in 48 hours. And so if someone needs to take over, having it all in one spot is important. And the reality is they never really start out as a big deal thing. They usually start out as something small. So documenting the small in the same tool that's going to document the big allows for you to grow that information.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that you talked about the PTO point, and I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more around what's a simple way to think about your templates. So, what's the intention when you document? What's a way to think about it of like, okay, what's the goal of what I need to get in here? Because I could see some people being like, do we also need this? Do we also need this? Like, maybe we don't need that. Like, what's a simple way to think
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
what you should document?
But more is not better in this situation, right? Because more also opens you up to more interpretation and more questions. So for those who are more legally thought process, the more you put down, the more you need to be able to answer. So I will say anything that your technology can do for you should be done, should be part of your template. So no demographics should have to be manually typed in. You should figure out a way to get your APIs in or your system set up to move all that over. For me, it's, what is the employee saying and what are you observing? And however you choose to ask those questions or answer those questions, that again is more of your company culture and based upon the things you're trying to drive. But at the core of it, in any communication, whether it's in company or out of a company, it's always about what someone's presenting to you and what you're getting out of that conversation. And then if there is a disconnect, what is that disconnect? Maybe there is no disconnect, and then you don't need to answer that. So I think if you start at that level of basic human interaction, you can build a very simplistic set of questions you need to do. There is always that worrisome, and my employment lawyers were always asking me these questions of like, but what about, what about, what about, what about? The reality is if there is a what about, ask yourself, can this information be found in another tool? Most of the time, those what about are tied to that kind of stuff. Or if it can't be, does it have to be part of an actual template? Or can it be something that key people who are in those things have regular conversations about what types of conversations they need to have? Because the reality is this is a very human interactive conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I think it's so smart to think about it that way. Um, this has been such a great conversation. I want to open it up to all the attendees
Yeah,
um,
sure.
for any questions. And yes, Trish, I see you're asking that you have to leave and you want a recording. Yes, this is recorded and we will be sharing it out. So feel free to jump. But I'd love to open it up if anyone has any questions or wants to hear more about something we covered here. Feel free to pop it in the chat. Um, we're here to answer some questions. We'll give it a couple minutes if anybody has questions. Um, great. I'm so glad it was helpful. Great. Yeah, we are so lucky to have Jamie here. You're just a wealth of knowledge. This I feel like is going to help so many teams just understand, like in a simplified way, simplifying it. I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed with things. And then if you just kind of break it down into like you said, three simple questions, it helps so much. Okay, awesome. We have some questions coming in. First, when presenting documentation and investigations to executives, what do you typically share? The full documentation, a summary, something different? Great
Such a
question.
great question. Great question. I mean, caveat it that some executives will just tell you what they want to see. So just be honest about that one and know who you're talking to. I am a firm believer in they should only know the headline of what they need to know so that if they are questioned, they actually can be honest about what they have to answer. It's unfair to expect an executive to understand all the details of a conversation when that's not their practice. What I like to do is make sure that I am going to, the more senior person in that division before I'm going to go to an executive and let them know this has to go up. Here's why it has to go up. I'm excluding legal in this, so I'm assuming we're all understanding that legal gets to see whatever the heck legal wants to see when they want to see it. And typically, if you need more than one page of bullet points, that's more than they need to know. You want to really tell an executive, is there an impact to the organization? What's the risk for the organization, both internally and externally? And what are the steps you're going to take? The reason for that is because from the executive lens, they need to know, what do I need to be prepared for if I walk out of this building? Will someone have a microphone in my face or not? Will someone be sending an email to me or not? Will I be getting asked for comment or not? Will there be an impact that requires finances? And if so, what are we going to do from there? And then is there an element in which I need to wrap my arms around the company? That's really the roles that they play. And so if you can present in that lens, then you can provide for them. And that's usually, honestly, I've almost never written it on paper. It's almost always been a phone call to share the information and be able to answer questions. What I also recommend is when you go to that more senior person, you ask if they want to be part of it. It's not an HR decision. And so often, everything in employee relations turns into our nameless, faceless, well, HR said. So the more you bring in a business partner to have a more executive conversation, it's about the combination. And I'm seeing like the Emily just wrote in here about impact and PR and financial impact. That then determines what other executives now need to take responsibility, and it's no longer HR or just HR. It's a team. Employees are the most important part of an organization. While HR takes the front of the V, we are not the entire V. So that presentation to the exec sets that tone of like, are you going to do the whole thing yourself? Or are you going to make them part of the cultural decision here?
That's such a good way to think about it. It's not always just, here you go, it's nice and packaged and we're just done right there. It's like
Yes.
it's the start of a conversation. So I really like the way that you framed that. We got another question about examples of the templates. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, you had those three questions that you ask. Are they different for different types of cases or documentations or any other kind of examples that you can give there?
Yeah, so the templates for us were almost always the same questions. Or transparency from a global standpoint, make sure the language works for the country of origin or the smaller local slang of that group. So did it change in my companies for different places? Sure, but the essence of the statements were there. Templates for us were not Word document templates. We maximized our tools. So it's not like a shareable, here's what we did, here's how it is. We took our tech and said, like, where can we put these questions in? But again, it's going to come down to the human side, right? What is the person or persons, because sometimes they come in a group, trying to express to me without your bias? What are they expressing to you? What are you hearing? And is there a disconnect of some kind? And you can write those however you want, make them as fancy as you want, but that's really what it comes down to when you think about those types of intake templates.
Yeah, and those are the parts too that have to be human. So that has to be the conversation where it's like, what are they telling me? How am I like absorbing this? And then you can put that in a tool, and then all of the structure of the data, that can be technology. So you have to have that human conversation. You need to interpret it, write it down, and then the rest of the kind of like structured data can be with a tool. So that's nice to simplify. Three questions. It's not a 20-page template that people need to follow. It's nice to kind of keep it simple. And, that also spans across different types of feedback and different types of things that people are saying. It could be something really serious. It could be something like the story you shared about, hey, I'm not loving this role. But you can answer those same questions in every type, which is great.
Yeah, what's important is that employee relations or whoever's taking on that investigatory hat isn't seen as separate from the rest of the company. So the reason the questions are so human is because those are questions that HR business partners can take to go have conversations while they're meeting and greeting or while they're sitting in business meetings and just turn it to the product or the process or the practice and asking, what do we need to take from the product? What are we trying to get out of it? It allows for there to be a transparency to employees that everyone talks to them the same way, and that it's not a scary moment when you need to have what's more like the principal's office, right? Because that's how most people feel when they come to talk to us, if we're being really honest about it. So I think being really simple in every process across HR is actually really important, and always putting through what are they trying to give me and what am I trying to give them, and is there some sort of disconnect in there?
I love that. That's so great. Let's see if there's any other questions. Feel free to pop them in. Jeffrey also just put Jamie's LinkedIn in here. Please feel free to connect with her if you want to talk to her one-to-one. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, we'll also share that in our follow-up with the recording as well. But if there's any other questions, feel free to pop those in. We've got a couple more minutes here. If not, we can wrap up and give everyone a little time back that I'm sure everyone will be thankful for.
Yeah, I will say I'm not one of those people who come and speak and like don't actually answer their LinkedIn. Like if you want to chat about something that's going on in your org, get my opinion on how it would work, or even just follow along if you like the way I talk. I definitely post a lot of different things on LinkedIn. I'm emerging and learning how to use my voice in a different way that way. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, Jamie, thank you so, so much. This was incredibly helpful. I know everyone probably feels the same way. Thank you again for your time. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Like we mentioned, we'll be sharing it out on email. We'll share the recording. Feel free to share it with your teams. And thank you all again. Have a great rest of your Thursday.
Yeah, thanks everyone.